Hey, Schlep here on day 20 of my through hike of the Appalachian Trail. It's a big day, about to cross the 200-mile marker and be at Clingmans Dome, which is the highest point of the AT. The past couple of days have been absolutely freezing in the Smoky Mountains, and normally you'd think we'd be talking about, Clingman's Dome, being excited for the view and just the reputation it has on the trail, but actually we've only been talking about the fact that it has a heated bathroom because everyone is excited to warm up and go to the bathroom and brush their teeth and clean up and change their clothes without actually being freezing. So looking forward to that in about an hour or so. Walking the ridges feels like that mini game in Mario Party where you have to try not to fall off the edge. So, exciting, but also if you fall here, you're dead. So, a little higher stakes, I suppose. It's finally above freezing. Makes it so much more fun to be at these high elevations with the killer views when you can feel your fingers. On top of a ridge, so a bit of a view on both sides, although lots of trees clouding this side. I appreciate the green. Made it up to Clingman's Dome, the high point of the AT. It's beautiful. There's about a 7-mile stretch from the top of Clingman's Dome to Newfound Gap, where a lot of hikers get off and go into Gatlinburg. It's mostly downhill, however, it's taken quite some time because of constant off-roading to get around the very icy trail. After a few freezing nights in the Smokies, I came into Newfound Gap and there was trail magic, which was a great surprise to kick my feet up and relax for a bit. A few of us decided to head out to Gatlinburg from there for a warm night in a bed and to replace our Sawyer squeezes since most of them froze during the cold. Stopping into town for a new Sawyer squeeze since mine froze in the Smokies, rendering it ineffective. What a hotel bathroom looks like after 4 hikers have showered and cleaned up. Staying in a hotel last night felt amazing to get out of the cold, got cleaned up, ate some good food, and slept in a warm bed. Just 2 more days left in the Smokies, about 15 miles today and 18 tomorrow gets me out and back to warmer weather. So excited for that, sleeping at a lower elevation and not worrying about things freezing like the brand new Sawyer I bought when the first one froze on me and no longer worked. When I'm not thinking about how to get across a piece of trail or what I'm going to eat next or where I'm going to sleep, there's generally just an episode of Survivor playing in my head. Like, do I have alliances? Yes. Are there people I want to vote off? Hell yeah. Like, would I spend some tribal bucks on peanut butter? I went to Gatlinburg to get peanut butter. It only took about 1 minute with thumbs up on the road this morning to get a hitch back to Newfound Gap from Gatlinburg. It's about a half an hour drive, 14 miles, but tons of curvy roads and traffic. So pretty amazing that even on Easter Sunday, people are willing and ready to stop and help out hikers. It's pretty cool how excited the people who pick you up are just to talk to you about the journey. So I think he enjoyed it and we got a ride, so that was awesome. I'm a couple miles in already, shooting for 15 today to get to Tri-Corner Knob Shelter. Still kind of vibing off of getting to be warm last night, and I started using a website called atweather.com, and it shows you the actual weather, like temperature and wind and rain at the elevation of the shelter itself. So I checked in for my plan for tonight, and the low is 36, which is so exciting that it won't be freezing. So cheers to that. This corridor is like a spooky tree graveyard. So many fallen down and then cut in half to get out of the way of the trail. It's hard to tell where the roots on this tree ends and the actual tree starts. You typically see this sign at a road crossing where day hikers might enter the trail. Today was awesome. I made it the 15 miles from Newfound Gap into the Tri-Corner Shelter. It's amazing how, like, when it's a sunny day and it's not freezing and there's no rain to combat, how much you can just enjoy the hiking. Still some ice on the trail, which slowed me down a bit. Also, some more steep, inclines and declines to deal with. But for the most part, it was walking on really beautiful ridges, like looking out on the Smokies at all the pine trees, just so much like beautiful green. The views are insane. I got to stop for a break, hang out and have lunch with some friends at a place called Charlie's something. Really beautiful. If you're gonna stop and eat a cheese stick, should definitely be when you pass a view like this. There are some spots along the AT where you can do something called aquablazing, which means you can take a kayak along a river or a lake that runs directly alongside the AT to clock some miles using your arm muscles instead of your legs. I was able to do it last year, actually, in the summer around Hampton, Tennessee, so I'm looking forward to getting up there and doing it again from Boots Off Hostel. It was a ton of fun. Blue blazes deviate from the trail for many reasons, from finding water source, privy, or shelter, to taking a bypass around a trail, or getting a shorter route into town. Brown blazing, not to be confused with the blue blazing that takes you to a privy. Brown blazes aren't actually marked on the trail, but it's when you take your trowel and the roll of toilet paper you stole from the last hotel or hostel you were staying at and go into the woods, avoiding water sources, getting off of the trail and far from shelters, to dig a 6-inch hole and poop in it. In blaze talk is pink blazing, where somebody either speeds up or slows down to stay on pace with somebody that they're into or hooking up with. We're about a month into being on trail, and the hookups are starting to begin. The culture is starting to become pretty amusing. Yellow blazing is a controversial topic. It's where thru-hikers take a car ride down the yellow lines of the road to get from one gap to another, and they skip miles on the AT. So technically a lot of these people still count themselves as thru-hikers even though they're not doing the entire trail. There's one camp where people get very upset about it and say that they're not thru-hikers. The group that does it says hike your own hike, and then there's also a pretty large group of people that really just don't care either way. The view from the top of Charlie's Bunyan. The past few days flew by. Finishing the Smokies was a lot of fun. The weather finally warmed up, so seeing all the really beautiful views, and having actually the steep hikes be on the downside were a lot nicer. Right when finishing, I came up to Trail Magic that had literally everything a hiker could want, from like snacks to sanitizer and sunscreen to actual slack packing. So for the first time, I gave up my backpack to somebody who drove it about 3 miles to the hostel I was staying at that night, and had a ton of fun basically running that last 3 miles down the mountain. Not having the weight on my back was incredible. Getting to Standing Bear was also great. They had a resupply there to grab food for a couple days, and they also had hot meals, so got some Mexican as well as some French toast and sausage for breakfast. The next day was the climb up to Max Patch, and I thought that the worst of it was in the Smokies, but the Max Patch day was actually pretty intense in terms of upward climbs. But the day did end with a surprise. A friend knew some people at Greenheart Farm right off of the trail. So we ended up at a gorgeous cabin, having an amazing meal, got a tour of their farm, and even got a foraging lesson. So we learned about all kinds of things from like ramps and wild onions and mint that we can be picking and adding to our food, and right away put it into action and pick some green onions to add to my meal the next night. After staying there, got a late start the next day, but still managed to get in about 17 miles. So my legs are definitely in. Anything, to the mid-20s, I would say, hasn't been that difficult. There's still a lot of ice on trail, which will make for a slower hiking day, but hopefully better than yesterday. Let's talk tech and navigation on the AT. If you've been paying attention, you know that these 2x6 rectangles, there's tens of thousands of them along the trail, both in the north and south direction, so it is possible to complete the AT with no tech at all, just following the blazes. People started walking the Appalachian Trail in the early 1900s before there were battery packs and cell phones or any guidebooks written up to get them from point A to point B. So it is possible, but of course with some innovations in through hiking, using different guides and tech can help you along the way. Some of the stuff that I'll show you is a bit excessive. I use 2 different guides. I have my phone and InReach as well as a smartwatch. None of that is actually needed. Like anything when you're through hiking, it's all personal preference of what you like. Aside from following the blazes on trail, I also use 2 different guides in conjunction to get me from point A to point B. The main guide that I use is the AWOL guide. I carry both this loose leaf version as well as having a PDF version on my phone. The guide offers a point of, every few miles showing you where you're at, whether it's a knob or a gap or a shelter coming up, just to show you where you are and how far you still need to go. It also marks things like viewpoints and tells you when you're coming up to a shelter, how many it sleeps, and what amenities are there. When you flip to the town pages in the book, it gives you different sites and phone numbers to call to reach out to different hostels, shuttles, outfitters, stores, so that you know what's coming up and what you can accomplish while you are in town. This guide is great for planning. However, it doesn't have any real-time feedback. So I use it in conjunction with the app called Guthook. Guthook has a lot of similar information to the AWOL guide, although I think the AWOL guide is just easier to use and plan. But the 2 features that I like in Guthook are, 1, the comment section. So if you're coming up to a water source or a shelter, you can check and see if somebody recently made a comment like the water isn't flowing very well at the stream, or hey, this shelter is full of rats, maybe skip this one. Some real-time feedback is nice, so you know what you're getting into. AWOL is also hooked up to GPS, so if I'm not paying attention, spacing out, listening to music or a podcast on trail, and I've kind of lost track of the different mile markers on this, Guthook has an actual GPS where you can just hit the button, it tells you where you're at, or you can click along the map of where you're trying to go and it tells you exactly how many more miles you are from that place. So a lot of people use one or the other instead of both. I think that both are relatively inexpensive and make it a lot more convenient to shake up your planning and your traveling during the day. I carry a Garmin InReach with me on trail. It has two purposes, neither of which are navigation. One is it has an SOS button on the side. So if there's an emergency, something goes wrong and help isn't close or my cell phone doesn't have signal, I'm able to push the SOS button and emergency services coordinate to find me. So if somebody is hurt or lost or missing, we're able to get help out on trail. An added benefit to it, since it has satellite power, is it tracks my location. So while I don't use it to navigate from point to point on my own, people can find me using it. So friends and family have a login to it. I do keep it in a low power mode, so it only pings me about once every 30 minutes, at which point the Garmin map connects it as a bird flies. So it severely undercounts the actual miles done going, up and down and around mountains. However, the location itself is accurate. So the people following along, if you check it against a guidebook for the AT or just even online, the actual location, you can get a better idea of the miles that I am doing. On trail is the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I'm able to use it to shoot footage for the vlog, and it's actually decent quality, so you can watch these videos on a pretty large screen and be able to see it without it being too grainy. The new phone also has a better battery life, which is really helpful on trail and meant to have a better signal. Verizon is technically the move for the AT. However, even with Verizon, there's still many places without signal. It seems a lot of the camping and shelter sites don't have any at all, but if you're in a gap or on a bald during the day, you can typically get at least a little bit of service to get a text or an Instagram post through. Even when I'm in town at hostels or hotels and you're paying for Wi-Fi, it tends to be pretty crappy. So I've learned pretty quickly not to rely on any signal. At times it can be frustrating if you're trying to contact or post something, but it's kind of nice to just accept that you don't have much signal and shut off and just be in the woods without constantly checking your texts and notifications. Along with my phone, I have a pair of corded headphones that I use to listen to music and podcasts throughout the day. Having one extra thing to charge is annoying, so I don't have wireless headphones, although I do miss the days of AirPods in the city. Along with tech comes the need to charge things. So I am carrying the iPhone charger, a charger for my watch, a charger for the Garmin InReach, as well as a backup battery pack and the charger for it to charge things along the way in between stops in town. These things are bulky and they need to stay dry, so they're kind of the bane of my existence. I would recommend when you're planning out your tech for the trail to figure out redundancies in your charger so that you don't need a separate charger for each piece of gear. My headlamp is my lowest tech but all-important piece of gear. Takes 3 AAA batteries and lights up the night. So whether you're hiking or just trying to look around camp, get your stuff in order, go to the bathroom, it is pretty vital to have for the evenings. The last piece of tech that I'm using on the trail is the Garmin Solar Instinct watch. It is packed with a ton of features that I do not use, including the navigation function itself. So I was able to find the GPX files online for each of the states along the AT, which gives you waypoints to guide you along the way. I downloaded them, but I don't actually need them. The trail is so well marked, and using things like the AWOL and the Guthook app are plenty, so that function was not needed. I typically use it as a watch, an alarm clock, a storm alert. You can set the altimeter and barometer for certain changes in pressure, so it lets you know if a storm is moving in. And it also has a feature that shows you the sunrise and sunset time, and you can set an alarm so that you can get up X amount of time before the sun rises to get yourself ready and out, as well as having an alarm set for before the sun goes down, whether you're trying to watch it or remember to grab your headlamp before it gets dark, is always a nice warning. It does have different fitness tracking abilities, so I can see my steps and mileage along the way, as long as things like heart rate and pulse ox and whatnot, and it connects to the Garmin Connect app on my phone. So it is neat to see over time how my miles and steps and elevation is starting to build. I'm not pleased with the Sawyer micro squeeze that I replaced my original one with after it froze in the Smokies. This is the newer model, but it seems to go a lot slower than the regular version, which is annoying when you filter, 4 or 5 liters of water every day. Good morning on day 26 of my thru hike. I just left Hot Springs, took a Nero day, just hiked about 3 miles in yesterday, spent the day doing the typical shower, resupply, laundry, also hung out with some friends, got food. The town was really cute, even got a massage in my room, which was amazing to ease some of my tight and sore muscles from all the hiking. I'm leaving town with about 5 days of food, gonna hike 70 miles into Irwin, Tennessee for my next resupply. Covered in sunscreen, finally in short sleeves, in stark contrast to the Smokies, where we were literally freezing and doing everything we could to stay warm. It's meant to be 80 degrees today and sunny and beautiful. So looking forward to the hike. It is 80 degrees and I am not pleased. Good thing I didn't pack out cheese. Oh man, I need to hydrate. We've got clear skies and about 4 hours until sunset, but given that we're on the shady side of the mountain, it looks a little dark and dreary to be hiking on. Today was pretty hot and difficult. I'm calling it quits after just about 11 miles here at Spring Mountain Shelter. The days when you come out of town are a little tough. You're usually walking like up out of a gap, back up into the mountains to walk the ridges. And you also have the heaviest pack, that you'll have for the week because you have a full resupply of food. So that, plus it being a warm day, coming off of being a little hungover and full of diner food, 11 miles felt right. Along with the warmth also comes quite a bit of bugs that are swarming my head right now. I was planning to tent tonight to get out of the bugs and get a little privacy. However, as I walked into camp, there was a bit of a downpour. I said that I was on the shade side of the mountain and that there was a blue sky. But no, in fact, there was a storm cloud chasing me. And it downpoured. So it turns out that there is going to be rain tonight. So I think I'm going to brave the bugs and stay in the shelter. It's a lot cooler today. Better hiking weather in terms of temperature, but the fact that there is no sun and a very cloudy sky means a storm is a brewing. We've come to a choose your own adventure. We could either ignore big weather, that there's a thunderstorm coming, and stay on the AT up to the exposed ridgeline, or we could take the bad weather route and head around the ridge to not be as exposed in case there's lightning. I think we both know which one I'm going to take. We survived the ridge! None of that blue blaze bullshit. Found the exposed part. Man, this is beautiful. Let's see about a view. We're in a cloud. Yesterday, I pushed about 9 miles to get to Little Laurel Shelter for lunch. A lot of people were there hunkering down because there was supposed to be some pretty nasty weather yesterday. Trying to convince people to stay and hang out. I ended up pushing on. Really glad I did. It did get foggy and a little rainy, but no thunderstorms came through. I made it to Jerry's cabin shelter, which was actually really nice. It was a stone shelter with a fireplace inside, just like the ones in the Smokies. So fun hanging out there. Today is another really beautiful day. It's the right temperature for hiking, like high 50s, low 60s, but nice and sunny. Planning to push about 16 miles. Making it to the water feature on a day hike with friends usually means, woo, get to turn around. But on a through hike, it means you get to drink some water before you hike for another 15 miles. Thru-hiker lunch of champions, a tortilla layered with peanut butter, Nutella, and banana chips. I'm geared up and ready to go, doing an over 20-mile day today to put me just outside of Irwin. I went from sweating up the mountain to ice cold getting to the top of Big Bald. So windy. We've got all kinds of different terrain today, from the forest to the balds to this relatively sparse path. Seeing the white flowers pop up again from yesterday, which are really pretty. Many signs along the way will tell you the next shelters as well as the next gap to help you plan out your day. There's a lot of stealth camping spots that aren't on the guides, but that have like an established tent ground and a fire ring, so you can stop along the way and camp. Found a much bigger and a live snake on trail. Not exactly sure what it is, so I don't want to get too close to it, but it looks pretty sweet. I'm stopping here for the night at No Business Shelter. According to the AWOL guide, it was a 20.7 mile day, but Guthook argues at 20.5. However, both say that our ending mile marker here is 338, so they can agree on that. My watch said it was 19.6 miles, and then the Garmin InReach was tracking me said 13 point something. So that just goes to show that they're all a little bit different how they track and measure the distance, and doubling, tripling, or quadrupling up and how you're measuring it isn't necessarily needed. So if you're planning a through hike for yourself, you can think through what your priorities are, and probably pick one guide or maybe one tracker. For the tech, I think I would keep my Garmin InReach just because my family likes checking where I'm at, and I like the feature that has an SOS button. But for the watch, since I'm using less features than I thought I would probably go with just a standard watch that would tell me the time, the alarm, and actually the sunset feature is pretty cool. So sunrise and sunset would be neat as well. That is all for this week. You can subscribe for updates as I go. Next week, we're going to be talking about a hiker's favorite topic, which is food.